Hey everybody, welcome, welcome. Let everybody come in. So excited. This is my name for those of you who don't know me. My name is Garrett Sussman. I'm demand generation manager here at iPullRank. And I am, you can see from my energy, I'm hyped up to be teaming up with none other than Andrea Volpini of WordLive CEO. Andrea, we've been kind of going back and forth and geeking out about AI
Connecting.
generative. Yeah, it's been fun, dude. So where everyone who's in here, we'll get started in like 1 second. We got an amazing presentation set up for you today, but just in the chat, let us know who here is already using AI generation for their content for SEO, who here is absolutely against it. Hey, Beatrice. And do you want to say hi to everybody?
Hello. Hi.
So we'll get started in a few minutes, but where's everybody from? I know over in Italy, it's a little late. Rob says he's guilty as charged using it. What time is it over there, Andy?
It's 6 p.m. It's fine. It's aperitivo time. So it will be my aperitivo with you today.
I love it. It's not the witching hour quite yet. It's noon over here on the East Coast. So I had a little bite to eat. I walked my dog. We're ready to go. I have been playing around with Chat GPT a bit. Andy, you're going to get into the code a bunch, like beyond Chat GPT and all the other large language models. If you're ready, you know what? Why don't you say we get into this shortly? One thing I want to say is for anyone who's here, we are recording this, so we will send the replay via email after this is over. Additionally, happy to take questions throughout the webinar. So if you have a question for Andy as he goes through this presentation, please leave it in the chat and we will get it in front of him. So without further ado, take it away, sir.
Sure. So yeah, that's a little bit of the agenda. We're going to talk about generative AI, how to use it, where are the pitfalls, and of course, some of the lessons that we learned along the way. I'm Andrea. I'm a CEO of WordLive. We help clients around the world automating SEO. We typically start by creating a knowledge graph, and then we develop machine learning models that help our client grow. So a little bit of context, Garrett introduced the fact that everyone is now using ChatGPT, and that's fantastic on one side and a little bit scary on the other. Of course, it's a dramatic change for search because, as we can see in this example, I can look for a wool beanie on Google, or I can just go and ask to the chatbot the same, and I would get a quite nice answer over there, and this is transformative. We at WordLive have been preparing for this transition from traditional search to conversational AI for many years. I've been, every year I think I predict that this is going to happen. And now, all of a sudden it happened. And I was like, oh, really? Now it happened. So definitely excited about it. But at the same time, of course, I'm very conscious about the use of it. So I give you the old man here. This is an American philosopher that has been doing an amazing work on the philosophy of the mind and the philosophy of the language. And here, I think it kind of, summarize more clearly, the limitation of a language model that in any case, at present stage, is nothing other than a mechanism for predicting the next word and manipulating formal symbols. And so it doesn't have any context awareness, any level of intention, any ability to reason, even though in today's presentation, I'll show you that there is a possibility for reasoning with a language model, but it's still, kind of early stage research. But this kind of sets the scene to understand, what we're dealing with. And then we'll try to dive a little bit deeper on transformer-based architecture. But before doing that, I think it's important to kind of focus on how the web is evolving from, a dimension where the content is on the web server and the search engine index the content. and the user goes in the index and look for whatever he or she is looking for, to a context where the content is generated on the edge, and it's unique, personalized for that specific search intent or that specific user. As we saw before, I go on a chat GPT and I interact with a model and I get some content back. Is this content going to be indexed? What is the relationship between this content and the content that has been used in the training? And this is a dramatic shift in how things work. Google has been working on the transition from the search and retrieve paradigm into a more evolved solution that takes into account the use of language models, but we're still not there. I mean, we still use an index that has to understand the quality of the content and contextualized. But what if the content is created on the edge? I mean, this is a pretty significant change, and this means that also SEO has changed forever. I mean, it's not going to be the same because we're not dealing with content it's static, but the content more and more will become dynamic. And even us, I mean, on our website in the documentation, we have a chatbot that answers the question that the documentation would otherwise provide, and that's how does the chatbot get indexed? So I've been trying to map for many years the different models, and we've been, of course, primarily working on generating text, and I've been always focusing in the last year on what is called data to text. So getting data and try to convert it into sentences. With the limitation of the models that we use between a GPT-2 or T5, and BERT or the various models that have been made available in the open source world. And here, I kind of summarize a little bit the landscape, and it's important because it frames the opportunities and it gives you idea on what it changed in SEO, because I can work on text. I can work on code. I can generate code, regular expression for filtering queries on the Search Console. You don't need to learn regular expression anymore. I usually bother my partner and friend David to ask, if he can correct the regular expression. And right now, I just do it on ChatGPT. But then, of course, image creation. You'll see also in my presentation that I've been, heavily using the generation of images. And then, of course, we have models that can transcribe the text. So we have advanced models for automatic speech recognition, creation of videos, 3D, and whatnot. So we have to contextualize what is the workflow and, what are the opportunities that we can actually tap in. And also we have to take into account that AI is truly multimodal since 2021. And that's an important aspect, because especially if we do SEO, we want to understand, how Google understand our content. And it's not rare that we see a benefit of, optimizing not only the text, but also the images that go along with the text and vice versa. And we can start to see that this interplay, it's very deep. So multimodality also brings us kind of two sides of the same coin, because I can, using the same contrastive models, create a semantic search or a neural search, and then with that same approach, with the same combination of labeling text and images, I can create a generative AI model that will create images for you, and it's the same technology. So within the same latent space, I can put the embeddings of a text alongside embeddings of an image, and then I can truly understand what these are about. Now, here I provide the first piece of code. I'm not going to walk you through, but it's super easy. You can just have a look at it and understand how Clip work. Clip has been transformative. It's a model introduced by OpenAI in 2021. And it works. It has been trained on a combination of images and text, and then it allows us to move back and forth. And again, I can use a string of text like Ray-Ban Aviator for finding that product, and but I can use the same string of text for generating, an image of that product. And it's exactly the same model. And of course, right now we are also seeing the limitation of these generic models. And so for some of our clients, we're starting to fine tune these models in order to, better understand the visual characteristics of our products, and therefore obtain, better quality in both the generation and the search. And now this is very practical, because in an e-commerce, I can go on and search for, a pair of club masters and use, the same fine-tuned models that it's trained over clip. But then, the same approach can be used for, let's say, generating an image of myself with a pair of sunglasses. And so it's the same approach that kind of has two different ways of interacting with the content. And again, it's SEO, because we are creating a user experience that is enhanced, but some of the content is going to be generated on the fly. And so is it going to be indexed? Will it bring traffic, or it's just a better user experience? Is SEO the same? Not really.
And to that point, I want to jump in real quick, Andy, is the whole idea around the MUM algorithm, because like that, Google's been using that in search. So that whole idea of multimodal is something that Google is understanding contextually in the search. So like all these kind of work together, seamlessly.
Totally. That's why, in order to understand how MUM works, and how something like the multi-search in Google works, where you use Google Lens to take a photo of the product, and then you can now add find me this product nearby, which means that they're combining different dimensions of the same experience, starting from the embeddings of the image. It means that we are working with a complete different set of data. We're not working with pages. We're working with physical objects, and sometimes SEO is also about optimizing the physical object, making sure that the physical object can be properly scanned. And so that's definitely a big change of mindset. Now, I usually look at distributional semantics as one of the domain of knowledge that we want to kind of get deep on it in order to understand how a transformer-based language model will work. Because here we have John Firth. He's a linguistic from the 50s, from UK, and it's been painted by David Hockney for you today. But distributional semantics is the first kind of starting point in my understanding of understanding how the meanings can be conveyed by the distribution of the linguistic items within sentences. And if we look at the most transformative aspect of transformer is actually what is called attention mechanism. Now, attention is a mechanism that allows us to assign a weight in the relationship between the tokens in the input and the output sequence. And so this is exactly what is making this technology so powerful, is the ability to connect what we have in the input with the output at the level of the single token. And this is actually Firth's initial idea of kind of understanding the meaning of the words by looking at the distribution of the same word in a large corpus of text. And so if we want to understand a little bit of how this next word prediction works, we want to kind of start from distributional semantics. Now, in general, transformer-based architecture are an evolution of a sequence-to-sequence architecture, like recurrent neural networks, gated recurrent unit. I've been using RNN for years for predicting numbers or predicting words. But of course, the introduction of transformers are extremely innovative because we can parallelize training. So we can work with a lot more data in a lot faster way. And has brought a complete new dimension of experience and ability. So in a transformer-based architecture, we have a transformer that encodes a sequence and then creates embedding. Imagine embeddings as an intermediate state. And then from these intermediate states, a decoder will, kind of transform it into an output sequence. Now, most of the GPT architecture is actually made of a decoder only. And that's also interesting because we can kind of decouple the two, and based on the downstream tasks that we are targeting, we can decide, what we want to focus on. But imagine that, we have a sentence like pioggia a catinelle. This is an expression in Italian. It was very hard to translate something like this because, of course, we would previously go literally and, token by token. But right now, thanks to the attention mechanism, the model is capable of kind of looking at the weights between, the input and the output sequence and understand that pioggia a catinelle actually translates into rain, cats, and dogs. And so here we have, inside the encoder, we have this multi-added self-attention that kind of understands, the relationship of the token on the input sequence, and then we have the same on the output sequence. There is another collab that I've done a while back that you can play with that allows you to understand how, a model would translate a sentence into first tokens, which is kind of numbers inside a matrix, and then from how these tokens will get some meaning by going through the process of generating the embeddings. But today we're not talking about these. Today we're talking about an ability that it's transforming the way in which this technology can be used, and it's in a way it's the most interesting aspect of these large language models that are becoming so common and accessible thanks to the introduction of ChatGPT. So what is emergent? I mean, the concept of emergence is a concept that has been around in science for many years. I think originally it was introduced in the 70s. So emergent is something that it's a characteristic that we can see on something that it only has a certain dimension. So it's not something that we can predict. In a traditional world, we would, observe a behavior in a smaller scale and then predict that the same behavior will reproduce in a larger scale. Now, emergent is actually the opposite. It means that, we can consider this ability to appear only in larger models. So this is interesting because it's something that it's completely unknown and totally dependent by either the size of the data that we're training the models with, or the complexity of the model, so the number of parameters, or the number of iteration that the training will take place. And so as we scale these, we started to see something that is totally different and unpredictable, and it's totally new. And that's where the research is going in while looking for kind of the artificial general intelligence. We will not get there through this, but it's important because that's the most interesting area of research. So I put a lot of notes and research paper that you can read in order to understand more about these emergent abilities of language models.
And really quick, Andy, so once you get to GPT-4, just adding over to a trillion of parameters, we should expect to see a lot more emergent abilities kind of present themselves.
Potentially, yes. I mean, it's a context where, the increase of size of the training data and the increase of size of the parameters, except for Chinchilla, that is a model that Google has created just with the scope of, demonstrating that the quality can go high even if we don't scale up the parameters. Because, of course, when we scale up the parameters, there is a lot of, complexity that comes into action. And then, of course, as we move forward, we want to reduce this complexity. But other than with Chinchilla, usually these abilities emerge when we have, more data and more complexity. So GPT-4 is going to expose more of these. But in short, there is I think a UC Berkeley professor that came up with this very simple sentence. Emergent is something that it's a qualitative change that arises because we are making some quantitative changes. So either we are increasing the size or the complexity or the number of CPU cycles that we're using for training. What we're talking about is really an advanced way of providing context to these models and training these models. Why is it important for an SEO to know all of this? Because that's how we do SEO. Because it's not just about if a couple of years ago I could say learn to prompt, now I can say learn about the emergent ability of prompting, because of course things are evolving. And so we're using a lot of stuff that has to do with a combination of knowledge graphs, so structured data, and language models. And so this is the new version of the tool that we have for generating FAQs on product listing pages. And yeah, the new release is cool. We are sourcing information. We're using only the content from the website of the client. We have the ability to validate the content. We have, of course, a workflow where the human is involved and kind of, red flags are triggered if something is wrong. And we're generating thousands of these, in the hundreds of thousands of these, and in the last couple of years. And it's a lot of content. And so we've been lucky to also look at performance on Google, because, of course, is it legit? Is it not legit? I don't know. I mean, we want to see if it ranks. Of course, we do have, kind of the moral obligation of create content that is high quality. And this is a moral obligation, not just because we work with large brands, but also because we don't want to create a crappy web. Life mission, I take as a life mission to get a better web. And that's why I started to work on semantic web, because a better web, it's also a web made of data. But long story short, here we see when we started with this experiment on the first side, the first 3 months, we have, 2,000 clicks from, the FAQ. And then you can see that moving forward, almost 2 years after, we have, increased the traffic, and it's reliable, it's sustainable, it works. But why? Because it's validated, it's helpful. It's not created for the sole purpose of, creating traffic that doesn't convert. In the end, these are e-commerce sites, so it's easy to see if it works or not. I mean, it's not just about traffic, it's about sales. Right. So I have created the team, Eli, maybe is following us. We worked on a prototype for you today. And so if you go on this URL, you jump on our site, and you can do something that it's quite interesting, because you can actually test a very simple implementation of these. And yeah, we have it here. So you can add a number of URLs, and here I put a URL about structured data, and then an article about generative AI from the Apple Rank website, and then an article about Gen AI, and I can hit extract, and then I can let WordLift do the work. So WordLift will extract the text from these pages, and then it will automatically create the questions out of these pages, and then the answers that are taken from the content of these pages. And this is kind of an idea, if you want. It's a things to play that you can use, and that kind of make you play with these technologies. So,
that's so cool.
Yeah. I mean, it's there. It's a free tool, and since we were doing the webinar with Garrett, we say, okay, let's do something cool. And now it's also ranking, and yeah. So yeah. When I do a webinar, I also write a lot of code, and that's my way of also understanding things. So one of the questions that usually I get is like, yeah, but what is a latent space? What are the embeddings? How do we understand this stuff? And then I think that the best explanation that I found is the one that you find highlighted here. So imagine that the 3D world that you're dealing with, it's kind of it's three-dimensional, but then you kind of look at the shade of this 3D world. And that shade, it's a reduction of the complexity of the 3D models in a two-dimensional space. And that two-dimensional space, it's actually the representation of the 3D, which is simplified. And these are the embeddings. That's what we have. So when we create a piece of content, we are acting inside this latent space. And so why you want to understand this? Because as an SEO, you want to understand what your embeddings are made of. Because of course, not all embeddings are the same, and I can use the embeddings trained with GPT-3, or I can use the embeddings trained with sentence-to-sentence transformer, and the results is not going to be the same. If I want to analyze queries in Italian, I have to use a model that supports Italian. These are kind of examples of why we need to understand a little bit more. So back to emergence. So in context learning is this ability, mysterious ability of, kind of conditioning the prediction by providing insights inside the training. Now, the training can be part of the prompt that we use, or can be part of the fine-tuning that we do for the model. Now, providing context, it means that, so writing a prompt in a way that works, it means that I'm emphasizing the features that are more relevant for the type of output that I want to obtain. And this is a, kind of an art form, but it's also now a profession. And prompt engineer in the Bay Area can take $300,000 per year. So it's a profession, because of course you have to work with language, and you have to work with data, and then you have to experiment a lot. But isn't this SEO? Isn't this so similar to the work of SEO? And so that's my thinking, is that, SEO have made a major step forward already, because we deal with AI every day, and we deal with content every day. So why are we using this technology, why don't we use this technology in a more advanced form? So this is a very practical example. You.com, it's a new search engine. If Google dies, we will all transition to you. It's beautiful. It's very innovative, and it already integrates, a ChatGPT-like model that you can interact with. That it's, smart enough to access the index of the search engine. Actually, the search engine uses Bing index. But let's look at this example. When I go there and I ask with Lily Ray, and I did this a while ago, then it kind of came up with the idea that Lily was a software engineer, and I don't know, something else, a data scientist. I said, no, this is not the Lily I know. And so I went on and I kind of improved a little bit the prompt, and I said, who is Lily Ray, the SEO expert that lives in New York, and he's also a DJ? And then guess what? We got a better answer. And then the sources also were a little bit more relevant, but there was still something that wasn't properly correct. And so I went on and on and on and on. And with these in context learning, I got a description that was actually what I was looking for. And this is kind of, the essence of in context learning, is providing the context that will, kind of make the model understand and reason. So these are the reasoning ability of these models that can be enticed by, providing context. This is another interesting example. So I go there and I say, who is Andrea Volpini? And then, it comes up with the fact that Andrea Volpini has, 1,500 followers on Instagram, but Andrea Volpini doesn't use social networks. I mean, I stopped using Facebook, I think in 2016 or something like that. I mean, I only use Twitter and LinkedIn. And, so I'm not definitely on Instagram. And so there is a false statement there. And what can we do to fix that within, this conversation? So here I use a technique that it's kind of derived from the self-ask paper that first use the language model to translate the provided sentence into bullets. So the first sentence is plugged into a first prompt where I ask the model to generate bullet point for each of the statement in the previous sentence. And so I have Andrea Volpini is an internet entrepreneur, blah, blah, blah. So every part of the initial sentence is translated into a bullet point. And then there is a claim. Andrea uses Instagram. And then as you can see, I'm asking the model to verify and validate the claim. And then the model says that claim is false. So it understands that part of the statement, it's, the less accurate one. And therefore, since this implementation of UChat uses memory, within the session, then he learned that, Andrea Volpini doesn't use Instagram. And so the second time, after I have provided the right context, it kind of gave me the answer that doesn't include the full statement.
And to that point, I just want to mention, Andy, is that I've seen as people start to do this, it still matters that you are validating with the correct information. Like you can manipulate to learn the wrong way by providing the wrong information and saying like, no, this is actually factual. So the goal is to get to the valid claim by guiding it with your knowledge.
Yeah, and again, since the model has, for example, at the moment, in most cases, doesn't have any understanding of, let's say, entities, and so it's unable to properly disambiguate a person, and therefore, we still need to validate, even if we can, kind of, guiding through providing something that resonates correct, we still need the validation steps. So this is another, famous example about the prime minister in Italy. I'm not a big fan of her at all. I mean, she's a fascist, but let's leave politics aside. But what is interesting is that on ChatGPT, there was no understanding that we had a female prime minister in Italy. And this is, of course, because there is a, knowledge cutoff and so on and so forth. But by using, again, a GPT model and the self-ask approach, I'm able to rectify, the answer and get the right one. And how does self-ask work? So here also I have provided you with the code. You can play with it. It's very, very interesting because as you can see in this chart, the model will be questioned with, in order to generate intermediate questions and to validate, the statement. Moreover, in the self-ask implementation that I present in the collab, you also go through Google. And so this is another important insight that we have to gain. So it's not just about instructing within context learning the model to produce a more accurate output, but it's also about tapping into external knowledge sources. And so in just a few lines of code, you can go there and you can play with these. And then, for example, I ask here, is WordLift a good option to automate SEO? And then the answer is yes. I mean, it's validated. It's good. But so you can play with these and you can see also the limitation of these, because again, since it doesn't have any understanding of the semantics, even though we are kind of supporting some level of reasoning, and so we're improving the accuracy, we still are not playing on the safe side. We're still, kind of on the edge. We are improving the accuracy, but we're still on the edge. So, and here, we kind of see another example. You can play with the collab. You can make your own question. It's super easy, like 3 lines of codes, but I do this because I want you to understand the potential of the emerging abilities, but also its limitations, okay? Because only if we understand the potential and the limitation, then we can, properly use it and do something interesting. So a chain of thought is actually the innovation that Google team has brought into this area of research. And a chain of thought is exactly what a human would do when, a complicated or a not so complicated problem is provided, by kind of breaking down the problem into smaller problems and then reasoning over each one of the steps. So here you see that there is a follow-up. What is the future of SEO? Then there is a follow-up question, and so there is an answer, and then there's another one. So what are the trends emerging in SEO? So the model is kind of self-questioning itself. And then by providing these additional responses, then the final version is more accurate than the first version. And so that's, of course, more expensive because you have, more calls to the API, but it's improving significantly the accuracy. The other question that Lily asked a while back on Twitter is like, okay, another issue with AI content is, how do we cite sources, because where is the data coming from? Yeah, it's coming from a latent space. Good. But, yeah, we understood what a latent space is, but how big is this latent space? These models are huge and, they contain, billions of data points. So how do we do this? Well, I give you another snippet of code where you can actually play and it appears that, one solution here is that we use semantic search in order to kind of understand where is the answer to the question that we're making within, a corpus of text. And then we suggest to the language model the right answer by providing, the most contextually relevant snippet of text. And therefore, we are able to quote the sources. So, yes, I made a demo of these. Oh, my God, I wrote a lot of code for you, Garrett, huh?
I love it.
So, so
Everyone, it's going to be available in the deck. So if you're not able to
it,
jump on these links, it'll be in the email and you'll get to play with all of Andy's little toys.
yeah. So this is kind of, the questions that I'm able to. So I started with a bunch of pages related to structured data on Google documentation. And then the first thing I started to, ask the model to generate the question for me. And then I start the model to, to kind of, give me the answer to some of these questions and quote where the answer is coming from. And so, yes, let's play with this. But again, there is a solution that we can apply in order to provide, the references. And of course, yes, these images are have been created with explicit permission of Lily Ray. So don't think that I wanted to play nice and, and actually Lily liked them. Yes. Oh my God. Okay. So as we kind of look at the emerging abilities of these models and how we can, kind of play safer, but yet not totally safe, we still have, time to get into validation. I realized that because of these, massive usage of ChatGPT, a lot of people lost focus, and now we are in the SEO community, but imagine when a doctor's lose focuses or a lawyer lose focuses because it's kind of relying on ChatGPT. And even inside our team, there are people that are abusing the system, and so we have a lot of fun on these. But what is the main point here is that we have to look again at our roots, our identity, who we are, who we want to be, who we're talking to, who is our audience. And of course, so I went back on ChatGPT and asked, what is the problem of over-reliance on large language model for SEO? And he provided, kind of a plausible answer, as he usually does. But again, the point here is that it's fantastic. It's beautiful. Maybe our friends don't yet know it. We can play cool that night. But the reality is that we're still our SEO. So we still have to, kind of, look back our skill set, understand how to approach the problem, what is the technical solution for the problem, and above all, what is the data we're playing with? I mean, did we have a knowledge graph in place? Do we have structured data in place? Are we using someone else's data? I mean, using data, as you saw in the previous example, provide us the ability to create some context. And so, again, is this enough? Well, not really, but let's review another use case. Okay, so this is a major retail brand in the US, and here it's how we usually roll it. So when we do something like this, we don't go on and kind of get 30,000 pages with AI content. We don't do that, and don't do that at home either. So some people do it and it works, and you can get terrific traffic. And but I mean, the risk is too high, and maybe there are people that are paying alone with this. I always say that I think Ogville say that you have to remember when you speak to a client that you're speaking with someone that is paying alone, with the things that you're saying. And I always, we have to be cautious. So so we don't want to deliver thousands of pieces like that. We want to do very careful testing. So here we have control 1 and control 2. These are two different pages where we do not apply AI generated content. As you can see in the first example, there is the description of the brand, and then there is this free shipping stuff. It's a template. On the second case, it's still a template generated text, so it's not very sexy, but it's still some text. And then on the variant, you see the actual WordLift generated AI content that is specific for that specific pair of sunglasses. So we have not one but two different control, and we don't have one batch. We have 5 batches. So in every batch is 500 products that are treated, and 500 products that are similar within the same category that are not treated. And then we have different batches because we want to see and observe the behavior across time and across different segments of the catalog before we apply it. And therefore, we want to look at the performance, and we want to see that if between the batches we have similar behaviors, and then we also want to look at the sales, because again, maybe I get traffic because Google, it's kind of hungry for more details, and here we are kind of providing every single detail of the product, but are we selling the products, or it's just traffic? And so it's super important that, again, we wear our SEO at, and we focus on how do we measure success in SEO. And it's not trivial, and it's crucial for doing the job. So this is another technique that we use. How do we make the best prompt? And again, of course, we can spend $300,000 and hire a prompt engineer, or you can do like me, that I spend the nights playing with this stuff. And I also became an artist, an AI artist. I expose paintings in a exhibition in Venice. Or you can kind of find a methodology. So this is a methodology. And so the methodology here that we've been successfully testing is actually to compare the image that is generated with DALL-E from the generated text. So we have two synthetic images here, and these two synthetic images are generated using the generated completion for the product. Okay, and so what we do next is then we look at the photo of the actual product, and we try to compare the two synthetic images that we have created, and we saw that we can get better results when we use the completion and the prompt that has been able to generate an image that is actually more similar to the original photo of the product. And because of course, again, how do you evaluate thousands of prompts? How do you evaluate your prompts? And sometimes people think that a prompt is like, okay, I've got it, it's good, it's gonna work. It's not gonna work, you gotta test it. And before you test it, you have to go through a significant number of iteration. And then maybe you decide that it's time for you to fine-tune your own model with that specific prompt, because a prompt is different from product to product, for example. And of course, there are nuances inside this prompt that would make the final difference and would get you, where you want to get. So now the last part is the validation. So the first thing that you want to ask yourself is how much you understand of the technology. The second thing is, what type of data do you have available? Because as we saw before, it's all about your own data. It's all about the high quality data that you have that allows you to provide the in-context learning information. But then the same data is actually your way of validating the output on scale. And so when looking at a validation pipeline, and if someone proposes you to generate content on scale, well, the first question is going to be, show me your validation pipeline, because that's how you can understand if that's proper or not. So what do you want to control? Of course, is the information available in the text? Again, we are SEO, so we know what information needs to be in the text. I'm working now with Jason Barnard to create the model that will, provide the description for the entities. Is the most knowledgeable person I know for the knowledge graph entities. And of course, he knows exactly the information that has to be provided inside a description of an entity. And so, is the information available in the text? This is something that the validation should do, because maybe that sentence, it's missing a piece. Maybe there is it's not the right angle to present the piece of information. Is the available information correct? And of course, it depends on, what type of information you have, but you want to make sure that, the data is correct. And then, of course, it doesn't sound with the right tone of voice. It's SEO friendly. Is it, does it talk like your brand? And so this is an example of, how we can detect the attributes. So again, product description, we see if the attributes are present or not. Not all attributes needs to be present all the time, because otherwise the text becomes boring and it's a template. But some of the attributes needs to be present, because otherwise, the product will not rank. And then the second aspect is, is the available information valid? Is it correct? I mean, are we describing, the lenses in the right color or in the wrong color? But how do we validate content? Because if we have a piece of content like an FAQ, how do we kind of validate the content? Of course, we have to use human feedback, but it doesn't really scale, and so we have to have something in between. And you can use, again, one other snippet of code that I've created for you that uses this validation pipeline to kind of translate the sentence into statement and validate the statements, and then the final answer is slightly better. And yes, as you can see, ChatGPT is not going to kill Google. No, it's not. But you can see that there are some nuances also in the way in which the model reason. And let me see if I have like the version here that it was interesting to see, because here, it says, well, no, there is currently no indication that ChatGPT will try to compete with Google. It is too soon to tell it become a threat, right? It is too soon. But if you look at, the last part, this one, ChatGPT is not a threat to Google, false. While there is currently no indication that ChatGPT will try to compete with Google, it is possible that in the future it could become a competitor and therefore a threat. And so, in a way, as things become more intricate and we're not just evaluating, product attributes that tend to be simple to validate, of course, we have to reason, and therefore we need the humans that provide, the level of intention of, what we're going to say. Is it going to be a threat or not? Gareth, is it going to be a threat or not?
I mean, it's too early to say. I agree. I agree with it. No, but I mean, it's really interesting to see the validation pipeline, and it makes so much sense in terms of breaking it down. And to your point, there are nuances. We were talking before this about, creating content and for your money, your life, like health and legal, industry versus an e-commerce product where it's very straightforward what the product attributes are. And so this is really critical, as you're thinking through which industries are appropriate for this technology.
Yeah. And again, what is the state of the technology? It's so early stage, even if I have created thousands of AI content that, presumably have been validated and they still rank and they work just fine for the tone of voice of the brand. It is still too early for me to kind of move this technology in some verticals where, I don't have enough confidence, And
Right.
And so we have to be extremely careful, and we have to be, very strong on our identity. Again, understanding what is the role that we have in society, what is the type of web that we want to leave to our children, what is the type of information that we want to create. Because it's not just about, of course, business values and there is more in this case that is involved, and we kind of have to look at it.
Right. And one of the major themes that you're kind of touching on throughout all of this is you have to assess your own level of risk when it comes to the SEO component. And then B, it's worth pointing out that at this time, Google and Danny Sullivan have said that they're not anti-AI content as long as it's helpful, but we know that that can change at any given moment. So, when you're introducing this at scale, to your point, the biggest thing is to experiment and test, but also keep in the back of your mind that there's no definitive, like, you're okay. You have to be comfortable with a certain amount of risk with all of this.
Totally. So I was saying, our client, our, kind of the expected client that I have is the one that always asks me as a first question, is it safe? That's the client that we work with, because of course, if you're not asking that question, sorry, I'm not, ready for that. So how do we validate the tone of voice and grammar? This is also kind of a science on its own. And we've been going through a lot of iteration with editors, top-notch editor. I have to say that our clients are pretty amazing. And, the few that we've been working with have, kind of brought a lot of expertise in creating content. And we felt back back in school, we got grades for the content that we got generated. And not only we got compared to the humans, which is in a way for a machine a little bit unfair at this point, but also, we kind of try to understand what are the rules that are used by a content team to validate, the tone of voice. And, whatever kind of characterize a large iconic brand. And therefore, we started to put more effort on the validation part than on the generation part. And that was kind of a transition that helped me learn how important it was to, focus on reviewing the content. Guess what? Now we can actually review the human written content because we do have encoded the rules into, in this case, another model. So we have created a sort of a Grammarly for some of our clients that kind of embeds their rules for validating content that we use for validating the AI content, but that we can also use at scale for reviewing, the human written content. Because guess what? Content always is outdated, and there might be areas of the site, even in large sites, that are not so well curated. And so now we can finally spot it because we have automated part of the validation rules that large content team have. And so this is an interesting area where we want to specialize more and kind of bring it also to fruition for more products. Another area here, it's kind of more in the finance sector, where we are using multimodal technologies and language models, is the enrichment of video content. This is content from a very well-established financial brands in the news and media sector. I'm not gonna say the name, but yeah, they have the color of their newspaper is quite unique. So they have a lot of gated content, and this content is not easy to be found. And so I started to kind of think, what can we do in order to make this content easy to be found and consumed? And so we have this pipeline that uses Whisper by OpenAI that does an amazing work at transcribing. I actually wanted to apply to one of the webinars, of your webinars. I will do it with this webinar so that we can create a summary and people don't need to go through it. And, they will just read the summary and everything that comes with it. And so we transcribe the video, we, process the transcription by creating, a summary and also a set of relevant questions. And then, of course, we can start using these additional content to create value for the content itself. And so this is kind of an example of, let me see, because it's not loading. Let me try to reload these. Yes. Okay. Yeah. So this is no, it didn't load.
The one in the center, all good.
That's good. Okay, yeah. So you can read it from here. So it's a good summary that the Bill address here, but we are also able to provide the link to the specific segment.
Oh, can everyone still see us? I'm here. I think we might be glitching out a little, but hopefully we can get in. If you can write in the chat if you can see me right now. And I think we might have lost Andy, but that's okay. Yeah, I was here. Oh, he's coming back. All good. You guys,
Sorry.
you guys are awesome, ladies and gents.
Yeah, I was playing with too many windows.
That's the story of my life. Too many tabs open, right? I don't know if you've been using like these different, like 15 different chats at a given time. So
yes,
let's get this up there. This is so great, by the way. Thank you everyone for sticking with us. Really appreciate it. Let's dive in. Got a little more left.
Yes. Yeah. So we're kind of wrapping up here so that we can have a few minutes for Q&A, if any. So just to summarize, language models are great, though unsafe, biased, racist, and a lot of other limitations that you want to be aware of. The feedback loop, so the way in which the human interact with the system, it's crucial. So sometimes the feedback loop, it's the SEO that provides the target queries. Sometimes the feedback loop is, the creators that look at, the produced content and revise it and kind of change it back. And, how do we make the human interact with the technology is essential And that's going to be, kind of the element of success of a lot of startups out there that are, already creating apps on top of, these models. Data fabric, whether it's a knowledge graph, whether it's your structured data, whether it's your, private databases. I mean, Shutterstock today announced that they're going to create images using their own stock photos. And they say that in the beginning they were against, AI generated content, but actually then they created their own tool, but it's trained on their own data. And that makes a tons of difference, because it will create, data that is more consistent with their brand values and, curation strategies and so on and so forth. So it's relevant, it's meaningful, it speaks like the brand. So you need a data fabric. If you don't have a data fabric, sorry, AI is not for you at the moment. It's too generic. It's, it's like a parrot. You don't need a parrot. You need tone of voice. You need human touch. You need positioning. Emerging behavior in language model, emerging behavior in prompting, the ability to reason using the prompt, or opening a world of opportunities for the research, but already they are actionable. I give you the piece of code that you can play on, and right here, right now, you can make better prompt by looking at emerging behaviors. As Garrett anticipated, we're going to see more as more data will be added. And guess why OpenAI has developed Whisper? Because they can now combine all the information coming from all the videos that have been produced, and not just all the books and all the web, but also all the media content is going to be condensed into GPT-4, and that's why possibly Whisper have been created. But we have to play safe. We have to look at the validation pipeline in the beginning of the project, not at the end. We have to start with what are the rules? What is the workflow? Who's going to read these thousands of pieces of content? I mean, how we do it, sometimes it's impossible to do it. And is this the right vertical to apply this technology? What is the risk? That's kind of all I have for you today.
Oh man, Andrea, there's so much, and we'll take a few questions. I know we're right at the end, but just to reiterate everything you're saying, like, we are at the beginning of the mainstream use of AI content, and it's going to expand rapidly. There are going to be many different tools. There are going to be many different use cases. It's important, to your point, to learn up, to understand the technology, understand the limitations, and then use your creativity in a moral way that ultimately makes the internet a better place and not a worse one. Thank you so much, Andrea. This has been amazing. Let's take a few questions as we get to the top of the hour. First off is Jeannie Hill asks, what is our best use of WordLift AI that helps shape our data fabric and prepare content for our knowledge graphs?
Yeah, that's a beautiful question. And in Q2, Jenny will be the first one to test our content generation tool that plugs in the data from our knowledge graph. Jenny uses WordLift. So the content that we have in the knowledge graph right now can be extracted using GraphQL and brought into query, into language models or prompts or fine tuning. But we're doing all of these mostly through code. But we're building an interface for that. It's beautiful. And it's going to be available hopefully at the beginning of Q2.
That's very cool. Okay. Ivan says, AI content has an issue with factuality and common patterns. Apart from manually reviewing and editing, how would you address this issue on an ongoing basis?
Yeah, so I provided a few examples of potential solutions. So one is reasoning with these models. And, kind of as we saw in the previous example, breaking the statement into axioms and then validating the axioms. This is a strategy that would bring, a higher level of safety. Not good enough, but at least will reduce the burden and the load on the human validation. Training another model on top of the models that generates that will control and validate the output, it's another solution. Then, of course, in some cases you have, factual properties, and then that's easier to be validated using NLP. But again, not all strategy will fit for everyone. But start from the validation first. That's what I would recommend.
There we go. And let's take one more from Matteo. If I go on Google, I get around 5 ads that try to steal my attention. If I go on ChatGPT, I get an answer that might be wrong. Will ads get a space in LLMs? What happens then?
Hey, that's a good point, Matteo. Because it's a problem, the low quality. It's a problem also for the language models themselves, because they are, kind of mined to become an echo chambers of themselves. And therefore, also in terms of scientific results, the fact that we are using these models not in an accurate way, it will create an issue. And if we look at the content suggestions that Google provided yesterday to some user in the Google Search Console, I think Matteo is one that he was first to send me, these and say, are these good or any good? I don't think they're good at all. Most of the content suggestion that I saw from people like Matteo are, kind of the result of, these echo chambers of these models that kind of try to understand and make a sense without really understanding. And so, yes, it's critical.
Yeah, I mean, to that point, and I think this is kind of like Lily Ray is pointing this out, Ryan Jones is pointing this out, of like, there is this risk going forward that as some of these large language models are trained on AI generative content, everything's eating itself and it becomes much more homogeneous. It's going to be important to differentiate with your own training materials, in essence, or being able to pick and choose what content is being trained on. Otherwise, the web will become this like saturated place of just garbage in, garbage out, right?
Yeah, we'll be back to the radio and the TV.
Thank you all for joining us. Obviously, if you want to get in touch, Andrea is always happy to answer more questions. Andrea, where can people find you if they want to follow up with any of their AI questions?
Yeah, I'm CyberAndy on Twitter. I'm on wordlift.io. You can just drop us an email there. Twitter, LinkedIn, or wordlift.io.
There you go. My name's Garrett Sussman, Demand Generation Manager at iPullRank. iPullRank, we do content strategy, technical SEO, content engineering, and audience research. Naturally, we're doing a lot with AI generation as well, specifically with e-commerce sites, financial services, and media publishing, but we are industry agnostic. So if you're interested, looking for any sort of support there, check us out, reach out. And then if you're obsessed with the SEO world, I do a show on YouTube called the SEO Weekly. Every week, I want to, in the email as well, I am going to include a machine learning guide that we put together, 170 pages, to go for a more basic explanation of what machine learning is and how you can actually use that as a marketer. So if you're not familiar with the collabs and writing code and getting into more complicated aspects of these large language models, we're providing this resource as a place to start and then kind of upskill yourself. And then finally, the next slide is the SEO Weekly. Every week I put out a show just kind of updating with everything that goes on in the world of SEO, like when Valentina Izzo of WordLift puts out a great article all about, the AI content detectors that you should read about, or Andrea writes something, or anything going on in the world of SEO. I cover it in the show, so check out our YouTube channel. Anything you want to say to the good people before we leave, Andrea?
Thanks for attending. It's great. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to write a lot of pieces of code. It's always fun. We also brought a new free tool on our website just for the webinar. So it's fun. We have added also a slide with all the references. So there are more links so you can kind of play with stuff and then write us back. And have a great day.
Y'all have a good one. Thanks again. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday, and keep your eyes peeled for future webinars from iPullRank and WordLift. Andrea is always doing this sort of stuff. So see y'all. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.